The epic return of the Magic School anime. It is here, folks. Reign of the Seven Spellblades is here. Or perhaps we could probably call this the Hogwarts anime that we all wanted, despite there being Little Witch Academia over here. Unfortunately, that TV series didn't really turn out to be a Hogwarts anime. It just kind of turned into its own thing. But yes, Reign of the Seven Spellblades, honestly a series that I heard a few people talking about beforehand. The source material has some really cool stuff in it. I'm already getting hints that there could be some really cool twist to this whole series, but honestly, with its first episode, I'm on board. And this might actually turn out to be a series that I might cover on a weekly basis, just because really the writer behind this, we have the original author of the light novel for this series did Alderman in the Sky. And for those that missed my review of that way back in the day, I really enjoyed that one purely around world building. The writer knows how to build a world, and I'm already feeling that with this first episode of this series. I'm feeling everything having sort of a purpose. Yes, you can argue it's explaining things too much. It's not doing too much to sort of build this subplot of the savior that will save the world already. It is really kind of focusing on the here and now, and I really do appreciate that. But with all that said, this is my first impressions of Ring of the I almost said Alderman in the Sky. Reign of the Seven Spellblades, a series that is airing in the summer 2023 anime season, so let's jump into it. Reign of the Seven Spellblades opens up with a guy named Oliver Horn, who is heading to Kimberly Magic Academy. Now, the big thing they kind of mention with this academy at the very beginning and during the opening ceremonies is that this is an academy that's got a little bit of a darkness underneath it. They're pretty clear to all the students of this academy that, hey, 20% of you is going to get consumed by spell. Is what they call it. Is essentially where your learning magic itself will consume you in some way. The examples they give is people becoming permanently crippled by magic when it goes out of control. You have some cases where people summon something and that something will end up dragging them back with them. Or you might end your own life because you go mad with spells and attack one of your fellow students. It's not a good, happy time. You're going to be here for 7 years and 20% of you is going to probably die. And that's a pretty interesting warning to give right off the bat. That's 1 in 5 of them is going to disappear in some way, and that's not a good thing. But even still, Oliver and all of them are heading to this academy. He bumps into 5 other students. One is Katie Alto, and she seems like she's very so much into kindness to creatures and other beings. Early on, you have the plants that are surrounding them on this path are kind of telling them different things, like your future is bleak and all this kind of stuff. She's totally trusting of it and feeling like something's bad's gonna happen. There's Guy Greenwood who kind of shows up and tells Katie, it's gonna be all right. That's just what these plants do. They absorb stuff from the ground itself. You have Pete, who is just kind of absorbed in his books and ends up almost stepping on one of these plants before being reprimanded by Michelle, who is this very prim and proper lady with big, huge ringlets. And finally, Nanao, who is dressed up as a samurai. Well, as they're heading towards the academy, they end up going to this courtyard where the academy itself is kind of showcasing all these massive creatures. They call them fauna, and they're all chained up and being walked in a parade. And everybody's kind of in awe of this because it's kind of a showcase of how important the Kimberly Academy is. But only one student is not happy about this, and again, that's Katie. Katie is not happy about this because she feels like they're sort of just kind of chaining up this troll and marching him around against his will. Her perspective is that the trolls, yes, while they attack the towns and farms and stuff, it's because it's their land and their kind has taken that land from them. Well, things go amok as somebody casts a spell on Katie and has her rush into the path of the troll itself, forcing Nanao to rush forward and guard her, screaming the shout that essentially stops the troll in his tracks. And everybody sort of works under the guide of Oliver to create this big flute out of wind where he produces a dragon voice, which distracts it, and then Nanao hits it on top of the head with her sword that's not bladed. Well, following this, they get the introduction to the academy. Like I said earlier, the headmaster kind of shows up and tells them like most of them are gonna die, and then says everybody celebrate with a banquet before flipping everybody upside down, landing on the roof where there's a banquet set up there. And then he had everybody kind of come together and do introductions to each other. We find out that Pete, who is the bookworm, doesn't actually have magic in his history. Like their parents don't have any sort of magic, and thus they're magicless. But apparently if you do this one special exam, you can actually still get into the academy. Again, Katie loves animals. Guy is Guy. Michelle is a part of this prim and proper family that apparently their ringlets is a part of the symbol of their prestige. Oliver apparently is living with his family and attending the school itself. And then finally, Nanao, who is this mysterious samurai girl, she apparently didn't go to an exam like everybody else. And apparently her family is also magicless. But unlike Pete, she didn't do an exam or anything like that. She was on a battlefield fighting and she was nearly about to die. And apparently Michella's father was just wandering around and ran into her, saved her life, and then told her to go to the academy. Which apparently the teachers of this academy have the ability to do that. Well, after the banquet, everybody goes back to their dorms. Oliver wakes up really early and decides to go out for a walk. He ends up bumping into this girl who is hiding in the shadows, who apparently was hired by his brother to keep an eye on him, before running into Nanao, who is taking a bath in a fountain in the courtyard, which he quickly puts up a veil to cover her up, but apparently she is cleansing off the blood from her last battle. So my thoughts on Reign of the Seven Spellblades. Thankfully, this episode really did sell me on the show. I honestly wasn't too enthusiastic. I think the PV and the synopsis that I got just didn't really sell me on the show. It was all about this guy goes to this academy and he's not going to survive unless he gets the help of this mysterious girl. And it's like, okay, that sounds very generic. But so far, the show itself saved that for me, honestly. And I think that's a lot to do with what wasn't said. Yes, it has a lot of explaining as the characters are going into this academy, but there is a lot of kind of emphasis on the lore of the world itself. Like the whole opening segment, it really is kind of breathing life into the world itself. These simple plants that are talking to the students as they're going down this path and really sowing doubt in them. They're telling the students, your future is bleak, you're in trouble. They're feeding off this magic that's flowing into the soil itself, and they're sowing doubt into the students. And yes, a lot of them can probably be swayed by those plants and not go to the academy, which is technically a good thing because, again, this academy, seemingly, at least 20% of the students are going to get chewed up and spit out. But then arriving there and getting this kind of lore to essentially the beasts of the world itself and how mankind has sort of taken their land from them. So it kind of turns that whole thing of who really is the enemy, who is really the monsters of this world. We're already getting a little cleverness put into the spells themselves as we find out that Oliver is really skilled at sort of using odd means in order to create effects from spells themselves. He creates this dragon voice by using the wind itself as almost like a flute. And he kind of explains that later on at the banquet that this is just something that he's really good at. He's very clever at customizing spells themselves. There's just like little details that are kind of sprinkled throughout the episode that sort of breathes life into the world itself. Even like the clock knocks, the little creatures that get on your clock and he's like, oh, they have these here too, and he blows them away. It's like, you wonder if there's like a way of excusing yourself for being late because technically these clock knocks messed up your alarm clock. I love this stuff. I love this stuff. And like I said, it is a tribute to this writer. Again, like I said, with Autumn in the Sky, as much as I had issues with that show not really getting to a really good climax, it sold me on just having a really amazingly built world. So far with the characters, I'm fine with them. I think there's a decent chemistry here between each one of them. They're not too combative, but yet you still have some characters finding fault with each other. Like Pete obviously is a little upset that Nano got into the whole school, even though she didn't do a special exam like he did. Katie is very driven by her desire for peace amongst all creatures. Maybe not enough for Michelle and Guy, but I'm assuming eventually we'll get something for them. But of course, at the core of it is going to be probably Oliver and Nano. Nano being somebody special because she has like this, what do they call it, the pure hair or something like that, pure white hair, which is a sign that somebody has so much mana flow itself that it like envelops their body. So it kind of gives her this element of her being special in some way. And how this is going to translate to him possibly needing to use her like in the synopsis, I don't know. But there's already a formed bond between them. And I think the later parts of this episode is kind of an interesting sign that Nano, yeah, has seen a lot of blood in her life. How is she so chippery? Even he states that. How can somebody be so innocent, have this faint scent of blood about her that can't be washed away? And I guess the sign of it is the fact that when Oliver first sees Nanao, he remembers somebody from his past or something. Some person in this river that's like, look, this is a good time for that. What did you say? Look all you want. This now is the time for that. What? I'll be interested to see what that tie-in is. Is this like some fated person that he's supposed to meet, and what significance does that have? It's obvious that Oliver is from some sort of important family, despite what he's saying that he's, living with his cousins and stuff, because he's being watched. His brother's having somebody watch him. Is he just simply there to join the academy and learn, or is he there to take down the academy? That's gonna be the question mark. But like I said before, my big draw here is just the world building. It is the element of this being sort of a magic academy that seems to have a lot of details sprinkled within it that could be really interesting. It doesn't just feel like OP main character goes to academy trains him, he meets a bunch of waifus, and they go out and they defeat the Demon Lord. Truth be told, I'm not a huge fan of Harry Potter. I've never been. But I do like the concept of it. I like the idea of like a wizard academy and the things that people learn there and what they apply to whatever. And I do like the idea of it not just being an academy that mages go to. It's an academy that people that just are smart can go to and train there. And yes, technically the concept of bringing somebody like Nano in who technically isn't from a family of mages. Now, granted, it's already implying that she is extremely magic-wise powerful because she does have this innocent color, this crystal-like hair that magical particles flow easily through. So she probably is still OP with magic, just never used it. And it obviously seems like somebody's trying to sabotage the academy itself, you know, somebody messing with the girl and sending her in the path of the parade. So I'm sure that they're going to have some point in which they're going to probably have to figure out who is trying to tarnish the name of the academy and take them out. But so far, like I said, it's doing a really good job of setting up. I love the world building. I love how it's breathing life into it. It seems pretty solid so far. We'll see where it goes from here. It does seem like it could be a really good show to cover on a weekly basis. I'll see based on the second episode if it's something that I want to keep going with. But so far, liking the character designs, the animation's great as well. I didn't mention that. All the character designs are fantastic, and there's no real use of CGI. I thought that I seen in a trailer once that there was use of CGI, but not too much, so we'll see. It's JC staff, so I'm sure they'll do a good job with this. But that's my thoughts on Reign of the Seven Spellblades so far. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment. Let me know if you thought of the episode if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows of the season. So if you want to get an idea, if it's something you want to check out, it's a really good way of consuming it. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support it more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. Special thanks to Smiley Pie, who just became a Patreon member. I greatly appreciate it, and y'all take care.